Welcome back, everybody. Today I have my dad, Daryl Martin, with me. Very excited. We're going to get into growing up, sports, military. He even had a wrongful arrest in his lifetime. But, you know, in his time on this earth, he's raised a minimum of 2 civil servants, but there's some other ones that have come into play, and I'm excited to get into it. Dad, I'm happy to have you here.
Glad to be here, buddy. Glad to see you.
Well, let's just get right into it. What was it like growing up, and where did you grow up, roughly?
Most of my childhood was spent in Southwest Virginia. My father was an insurance guy, and I was born in a little super small town, no traffic lights to this day, Keysville, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Half the town was my kin. And then Dad got promoted. We moved to Martinsville, Virginia, lived there for a couple of years, and then he got promoted again and moved to Roanoke, which is where I tell everybody I grew up. Just a middle-class life, like maybe lower middle class. Didn't want for anything. Everything was good. And, of course, back then, 3 channels on TV, if you're lucky, and spent most of my time outside playing.
And Grandpa controlled those 3 channels.
Completely and totally when he was home. Absolutely. He did. But, yeah, spent a lot of time in the woods, playing in the creek, shooting BB guns, playing ball with the neighbor kids, riding bikes. Not a lot of inside time.
Yeah. Well, and I didn't mean to do this, but a little background. So my grandfather, your dad, was in the Army.
Yep.
Was in wartime?
He was Korea.
And then my grandmother, it's hard to describe grandma, but she has the best green thumb. She could grow a dead stick and turn it into a fruit-bearing tree.
Absolutely.
She did 30 years at JCPenney, I think. She retired, cooked everything from scratch. She made all her meals. Still, by far, makes the best pies I've ever had in my entire life. For people who hate pies, she makes the best pies.
She could have been a Hardee's buttermilk biscuit maker.
100%.
She, both of them grew up poor, dirt farmers, tobacco farmers, hard workers, tremendous work ethic. And Mom was a stay-at-home housewife and kept an immaculately clean house, laundry, you name it. And then when my youngest sister finally got into 9th or 10th grade and was driving, she decided it was time to get a job. So she couldn't figure out what she wanted to do, could do, been so long out of the workforce. Did you know she was a licensed cosmetologist at one point in time in her life?
Grandma?
Mm-hmm.
I did not know that.
She was. And spent a lot of time shopping for kids' clothes. So she went to JCPenney's. The store manager knew me. I went to school with his daughter. He came to all of our football games, and she said, I'd like to get a job. He said, what do you want to do? She said, how about kids' clothes? I know a lot about that.
She damn sure did.
So that's what she did, and then progressed and became a jewelry specialist, sent her to Atlanta, Georgia for jewelry school, and then she became a floor supervisor for Penny's, and that's where she remained until she retired.
See, I didn't know any of that about Grandma, so yeah. I'm loving it.
Yep.
And I just have to give you my perspective of Grandpa. So he was a larger-than-life person.
Absolutely.
He was an insurance guy back when insurance guys were beloved in their community. I don't know that they are now. I remember going into his closet, and he had a suit, every color of the rainbow. He had shoes to match.
Yep.
Always had a gold watch, gold ring, money clip with money in it. But he just had this larger-than-life persona. And anywhere he went, when I was with Grandpa, they would be like, Larry, Larry, Larry.
He was definitely larger than life. He dressed to the nines.
Always.
But he truly loved people. That was his real thing.
Yep.
He had a genuine care, even for strangers.
Yeah, no, I've watched it in real time.
That's half of what set the standard for us growing up.
Yeah.
He really never met a stranger. And I remember when we first moved to Roanoke, and of course I've been living in these smaller communities and tight-knit communities, and we go to dinner, and it's just wasn't a Golden Corral, but it was something like it.
Yep.
And he tells me to get up and go over and get the waiter. And I remember I'm like, no. I'm like 9.
Yeah.
And finally, he kind of made me do it. And I did it. And I think that kind of broke the ice for me, meeting new people.
Yeah.
It's the weirdest thing is that one-off at a meal. It's crazy. And I've thought about it over the years.
Well, it is amazing. I remember my children growing up and they didn't want to order their food at the restaurants and they're shy. They didn't want to say, I was like, and so, you kind of got to be a little stubborn with them and
Yeah.
say, if you don't order, you ain't eating.
That's right. That's
But now they're rocking and rolling.
Oh, yeah.
So
being proud of those two. That's for sure.
oh yeah, we could talk about them for hours, but
Yeah.
Sorry, get back on. Sorry, I got a little off track, as I tend to do. So growing up, sports were a big part because I know that because it impacted me and my brother and my sister.
Yep. Yeah. We, Dad actually was Army Korea, and he had taken typing in class.
Yep.
And so when he ends up in Korea, he became an administrative clerk, what he did.
Mm-hmm.
And they ask, who can type 60 words a minute? Hands go up. 40 words a minute. Hands go up. They get down to, can you at least type 25? And he's still sitting there with his hands down. So they would give him an appropriate stack of paperwork. He'd be done in like 2 hours. Yeah. Everybody else is there all day. Well, he was an all Far East football player. He made the all Far East Army team. And so his time in the Army was primarily spent playing football, traveling across Europe, and a lot of it was in Korea. But playing football, that's what he did. He played football in the Army.
Yeah, with the shorty shorts.
Yeah, and that kind of led to everything else. Growing up, again, outside all the time. And then when it became age appropriate, I think I was about 6 or 7 at the time. And the very first football team I was on, we ran a single wing offense, and I was one of the running backs. And we went undefeated and won a championship, my very first organized sports. And of course, my father was one of the coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of led to it. And then baseball, played for old postmaster my first 3 years playing baseball. And buddy, he was tough. I mean, he was a hard coach. He was one of those post guys that carried a leather bag, walked downtown Martinsville delivering mail. And he was tougher than nails, man. And he would hit balls at us. And I confirmed it later with my father. I'm like, I felt like he was hitting that ball pretty hard. He goes, oh, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
And of course, we didn't lose a game in 3 years.
Well, there you go.
And he had me pitching and playing shortstop. And I wanted to catch. I wanted to catch so bad. So I pestered my father for about a year to get me a catcher's mitt. He's like, you don't play catcher. It got to the point where even the coach brought a handout of baseball positions, and he'd taken a highlighter and said, shortstop's the most important position on the field. And I'm like, okay, great. But I pitch and I play short and I want to catch. Stubborn kid. So anyway, Dad finally brought a catcher's mitt home, and I never used it in a game. He used it to catch me.
So there you go.
That's what he did. And yeah, played 3 years for them. And then to give you just some background on how my family and my perspective was, by last year playing for Coach Lawrence, there's this, at the time, I'm a kid, this very large black man comes walking out on the field. Didn't even wait to get in the dugout. He says, hey, man, he says, hey, boy, you got a problem with black folk? I said, no, sir. He said, you want to play baseball for me? I said, sure. And here comes my dad. My dad's like, what's going on? So they have this big conversation. Well, next thing you know, the next year I played for the PLG club. I was the only white kid on the team.
Well, there you go.
They hadn't lost a game in 6 years. And he recruited me as a backup shortstop and to pitch. And so he worked me every practice at shortstop. And then I pitched, of course. But in the game, he put me in right field. Because his shortstop, this was his last year. Yeah. He was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's what he did. He was grooming people to keep coming. And he just went around and picked the best players.
This is Little League.
Yeah, this is Little League baseball.
Hilarious.
And the funny part about it, I guess it was the time, because it didn't mean anything to me. I know my father hired a black guy to work for him. Well, we went over to their house and had dinner, and they were friends, and they came to our house, and they had a son and a daughter. The son was about my age. The daughter was about my younger sister's age. We were just friends and played. So we didn't know all this other stuff at the time. And so it was kind of foreign to me. I really didn't know much about it until I joined the Marines.
Yeah. Well, that segues right into it. So then you get into your military career. Yeah. How old were you? What'd that look like?
I turned 20 in boot camp. I played a year of football, football in college. And the reason I went where I went, the coach had agreed that I could play football and baseball because I had several smaller colleges. I was 5'11", 165 pounds, but I was fast. I could run. And I still was a pitcher. And still played shortstop, did all those things. And then football season came, not halfway through, a little before the halfway mark. I was starting. I always started on special teams because I could run. And then I started playing more and more free safety, strong safety. And then baseball comes around. I go out and I'm the second best pitcher on the team. The best pitcher on the team was a senior who was a lefty, and he was freaking good. And next thing you know, it's like 4 days in, and I'm on the cut roster. And so I go to the baseball coach. I'm like, "What is going on? There's no way this is right." He said, "It's not me, son. I would have you out here." So being a young, hot-headed 19-year-old or 18, I guess I was 19 at that time. I turned 19 in college, and so I walked into the coach's office, and I'm like, "Hey, man, what's going on?"
The football coach's
Yeah.
office? Yeah.
He said, "I need you at spring practice." I said, "I agreed to come here and play for you because you told me I could play baseball. Things changed."
That's what he said?
That's what he said.
Well, there you go.
And I fundamentally at that point in time said, F you, I ain't playing for you. And hothead, stupid, spoiled athlete. I was defensive captain in high school, special teams captain, and, just kind of that whole thing around that. And so this was my first my most severe screw you somebody had ever done to me in my life.
Mm.
And we'll back up one step. In high school, I made the varsity squad my sophomore year, about halfway through the year. And then started my junior year, came up the spring of my junior year, stupid mistakes, went out on the smoking block, just being honest, went out there with my girlfriend at the time, and I'm out there having a smoke. While I was smoking, I have no freaking idea, but I was. And somebody saw me and reported me. So the football coach says, "Don't even bother coming out. Don't want you on my team." Blah, 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 blah. Okay, no problem. So summer comes and goes, and I've been working out all summer and working. I was working at a brick factory, cleaning out dust and greasing conveyors and just hard physical work. And football comes, I show up. And he says, "I told you don't come." I said, "This is public school. You can't tell me I can't come.
Yeah.
You can cut me and tell me I'm not going to play.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be here." So I was a fourth team linebacker.
Okay.
Yep. And 7 days into practice, our defensive coordinator, Coach Dowdy, who I love to this day, he said, "You're playing."
Yeah.
"You're not playing. You're starting."
Yeah.
And so first game of the season, Coach still being kind of upset at my disciplinary problems from the spring. "Nope, you're going to play outside linebacker. We're going to start this other guy at Sam." First quarter didn't finish, and Coach Dowdy called me over and says, "You're moving to Sam. You're moving outside."
Yeah.
And that's the way it was the rest of the year.
All right.
I was our defensive captain, special teams captain, and we lost the regional finals to a team called George Washington of Danville. We had 32 players. They dressed 88.
Yeah. I've seen that.
Yep. And then the whole college thing. And so that summer I came home, and just for full transparency, I'm just kind of lost. I decided to follow my dad's shoes and go into insurance. And I got on with a reputable, known company, and, I passed my test, and then the guy immediately starts pushing me to move out of my house. I'm like, "What?" "Well, yeah, your father works for a competitor." And I said, what does that got to do with anything? And then he started implying we could pick and choose from each other, or I would give him business and that type of stuff. And that just, of course, again, hot-headed 19-year-old just pissed me off.
Yeah.
Oh, God, it pissed me off.
Yeah. How dare you?
So I'm figuring out, I'm wandering through the woods of life and no direction, and just thought about, Dad, Army. We still had his Korea Army jacket. He still had his old jump boots, that he held around for years. And so I go to the recruiter's office, and I walked in. I decided I was going to talk to the Air Force first. He was a very unimpressive individual. Then I talked to the Navy. Again, not impressed. Talked to the Army guy. He was a much more professional, I would say. Thinking Army, walk out. My recruiter's standing down at the end of the hall, of the Marine recruiter. He's standing at parade rest. And he says, "Aren't you going to come talk to me?" And I said, "Hell no." He said, "Why not?" I said, "You fuckers are crazy." And he goes, give me 10 minutes. That's all it took.
Yeah, I never actually asked why you chose the Marines over the Army, considering your dad was Army. But it actually, your decision to do that triggered a lot generationally, because my son, my brother,
the funny thing about
that 10-minute conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the funny thing about it is he really didn't talk much. They had a recruiting video. They put in a DVD, or not a DVD, a tape, VCR tape. And it basically kind of took you through boot camp, and it kind of took you through some of the history. It was all these little blurbs. And of course you walk out of there and you're just, the hairs on your neck are standing up. You're like, oh yeah, that's me. Yeah. And it is funny because my mom's family, my dad's family, predominantly Army. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Couple of Navy thrown in, couple of Air Force thrown in, 0 Marines for generations. And so I came home and I'm talking to my mom and dad about it because, we were a close family, in my humble opinion. I was very close with my parents. And I'm talking to them. My mom starts crying, doesn't want me to do it. Dad's like, buddy, I think that's a bad plan. You might want to go back and talk to that Air Force recruiter or that Army recruiter again, and anyway, so I'm pondering it around, and I'm actually bagging groceries at a grocery store. That's where I'd landed. So I could just, at least, we always worked.
Yeah.
And about 3 or 4 days in, Dad comes home and he says, come on down here. I want to talk to you. So we go down to the den. We sit down. He said, I've been thinking a lot about it. He said, I think the military is not a bad choice. I really do. I just really think you need to rethink the Marine thing. And I said, why? And he gave me his reasons. He had been stationed around some Marines, but he really didn't have a depth of knowledge there about it. It was his reputation that everybody knows.
Yeah.
And so I finally went back down and I talked to him and signed up for delayed entry. It was July 27th, 1980. And I thought I was supposed to be leaving for boot camp on November 15th. And so it's fall. I'm doing what we always did. I'm hunting, and went to Craig County hunting whitetails. Well, good friend of mine at the time, his father drove an old Ram Charger, but it had a very distinct noise. It was like a big 318 in it, loud pipes. Well, we can hear the Ram Charger coming down the dirt road that leads back in the national forest where we're hunting. And I was like, well, why is he here? What's going on?
Yeah.
So we go walking out of the woods because my buddy and I had been out that night and, chasing women, doing whatever we were doing. And so it's like midnight. We're like, let's go hunting. We'll just go get our gear and we'll go up there and camp overnight, just hunt in the morning. I'm like, great. So anyway, here he comes. He's like, dude, you got the whole world looking for you. I said, what are you talking about? He said, you're supposed to be leaving for boot camp. I said, I'm not supposed to be leaving for boot camp for another 2 days. He said, buddy, they're calling your parents. Everybody's looking for you. Of course, we didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
So Pat knew where we were going to be. So I go back home. I'm like, what is going on? And Mom's like, you're leaving for Richmond tonight. What he meant was I could leave for Marine Corps boot camp on that day, but I got to be in Richmond the night before for that day of going through the AFEs and getting your physicals and making sure everything's right. Yeah. Then the next day I leave for boot camp.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't explain all that very well.
Well, yeah.
So anyway, I made it. Long story short, made it. Took an Amtrak, hit Paris Island, the whole thing. Alex experienced it. Taylor's experienced it. You get there. It's late at night, 12 o'clock, whatever, and you're sitting there for an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden the bus pulls up. Here comes guys. And when they're in the building, all right, come on, you guys, come on here, get in the bus. As soon as they get in that bus and those doors close, buddy, that's when all hell breaks loose. It's game on, baby.
I bet.
Game on.
I bet. Well, so you had mentioned that you said you didn't realize the racial stuff until you got into the military. What did you mean by that?
I just didn't experience it. I went to school with, at the time, predominantly either Caucasian or people of a black persuasion, darker skins, if you will. Didn't care. The guy that played Will linebacker right beside me was a black guy who I absolutely loved and adored.
Yeah.
Big boy, sort of like you and BJ. I mean, him and I were friends. His dad and my dad knew each other, even though they were in completely different lines of work.
Yeah.
And this guy was a stud, man. And it just never was a problem that ever presented itself in my life. And then when you get into the Marine Corps and you start meeting people and you see the kind of how tribes form, if you will.
Yeah.
You've got this crew over here and this crew over here. Well, again, you would see some of that. I'm like, what's the problem? And then you start figuring out that some people did have biases.
Oh yeah.
They just do, don't know why. But our tribe that I was running with while I was in training, because I was in training for 14 months, was a boy from the hills of Kentucky that didn't get indoor plumbing until he was 16 years old. Another guy who was from the east side of Chicago was a Golden Gloves boxer. Another guy who was from up in Boston, Massachusetts, and was a cross-country runner, tremendous runner. Golly dang. And then a guy who joined the Marine Corps to get his citizenship because his family had migrated from Mexico.
I love that.
I mean, these are the guys that I ran with, partied with, went to bars with. And then another guy from, we always made fun of him, called him a mutt.
Yep.
He was up in Jersey, and he just a great guy. I mean, all these guys were just great guys, and we were tight, and we ended up stationed together at different varying times. And another old boy from Mississippi who was a Golden Glove boxer, and he was actually very good, and he was going to go pro. Well, he threw a left hook or a right hook, I forget which one it was, and missed and tore his shoulder completely up.
Yeah.
And he had tried out for the Texas Rangers, and he tried to play center field, and I forget who it was. Their starting center fielder, big name, can't remember right now. He had talked about retiring. Well, he came back. He did not retire. And when he came back and didn't retire, Mel got cut and joined the Marines. And that's how I knew him.
Yeah. A lot of what you're saying is reminiscent of my conversation with Alec, and like, why do you keep wanting to go to the Marines? And almost identical to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And then now that he's almost done with training, but he's been talking to me, he got out of a small town in Maine, and I remember talking to him after boot camp and a few months after that. And he was just like, Dad, the type of the individuals are running. There's dudes that got 3 kids. There's dudes that have stab wounds, gunshot wounds. There's guys that have been to jail and got out. And then on the flip side of that, homeschooled, never been alone.
Yep.
He's like, it's crazy the different types of people you run into.
It is.
Yeah. And so you just get exposed to all this. And, I think about these things a lot. It's like, why the military, why teams and stuff like that. You get exposed to these massive people, but you're all relatively like-minded, similar in age, roughly, and you're doing something very hard together. It creates a bond where if he would have done anything else, even college or whatever, you probably wouldn't be as close to these people because you're not doing hard shit together.
Oh, buddy.
Like, you got to have each other's back.
What's funny is when I was in, and we were in receiving, because you've got 200 people in receiving, and there was at least 4 guys there. And I remember one of them distinctively because he was in the same room I was in receiving. The reason he was there is because the judge gave him 2 options.
Yeah.
Go to jail or go in the Marine Corps. Not go in the military. Go to jail or go in the Marines. Yeah. And so he chose the Marines. But yeah, we started with 60 in my platoon in boot camp. I was 3rd Battalion Hill Company, and way back in the swamps. And we ended up graduating 30. So we lost half.
All right. And just for people listening, because I laugh now, I was way older than I should have been when I realized, because I told everybody that you and Mom were engineers, Marine Corps engineers, until an old gunny, we were deputies in Hillsborough County, so I was almost 30. He said, did they build bridges or blow shit up? I said, no. He goes, stop saying that. And he goes, what did they do? I said, they were like working on jets, or, I still really didn't know because I didn't ask. I've asked after the fact, but he's like, you need to stop. He goes, they're Marines. Not taking that away from them, but stop telling people that they're this. And I said, yes, sir.
Well, actually what we did was very high tech.
Yeah.
We were metrologists. It's a fancy word for calibrators. All of the stuff that makes a fighter jet, a Harrier fly, all of the nav systems, the countermeasure systems, all of that stuff has to be tested, calibrated, verified, accurate before that plane can take off. And there's different maintenance intervals, obviously. But yeah, that's what we did.
Got it.
We calibrated and repaired and fixed all that stuff.
So then that takes us to Okinawa. How old were you? What, say it again?
Iwakuni.
Iwakuni, sorry.
Yeah, mainland Japan.
Iwakuni. How old were you? What was your assignment there? How long were you there?
Let's see here. I was turned 20 in boot camp. I was 21 when your mom and I got married. Well, yeah, we got married, and I left in April, and she got there about June or July. And I was there for a grand total of like 17, 18 months,
Mhm.
17 months, I had to extend my duty because I was there living in the barracks. And then your mom was finished in school and she was heading to Iwakuni. And so came over there and she spent a year. I had to spend the extra time. It wasn't quite a year and a half. I think it was like 17 months. But again, that was a great duty station after you get over the culture shock.
Yeah.
Woke up every day, rode to the gym, rode a 10 speed to the gym on base,
Mm-hmm.
unlocked the gym. There was a gunny who was an Olympic power lifter.
Yep.
Gave us keys, unlocked the gym, work out for 2 hours, get back, take a shower, get dressed, go to work, go to the lab, do our thing. And then every day over lunch, I played racquetball with a couple of different staff sergeants, lieutenants, a bunch of people who were really into it. I played every day for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I was in the best shape I'd ever been in. And my buddy, who was a cross country runner, he ended up over there with me. And that crazy son of a buck, he'd knock on the door on Saturday morning. I mean, it's like 8:00 and we've been up drinking and partying, playing cards, doing whatever. And it's 8:00 in the morning. Come on, let's go run. Like, go run. I said, what are you doing? I'm not running far. We're just going to go 16 miles.
I've had friends like that. I'm like, you got your goddamn mind. I've never run more than 2 miles on purpose.
I've run 20.
Oh, Jesus.
So I wouldn't say I ran it well.
Well, hey, finishing it is hard enough.
And I told him, I said, that ain't happening again.
Yeah, don't ever do that to me again.
We ain't going over 12.
So sometime between then and then you go back to North Carolina because, as I tell everybody, I was made in Japan,
Yep.
Born in the U.S.,
Truly were.
back to Cherry Point.
Made in Iwakuni.
So now you're back in the U.S. and you have your first kid.
Yep.
And you're still in the military.
Yep.
What was that like for you?
It had its own trials and tribulations. Of course, you're a young man and you're trying to have as normal as can be of a life and be a Marine. And of course, we bought a house. It was a new build. And of course, we were stupid about houses and buying and everything else. Just didn't know any better. Of course, the information that you can find at one website, Zillow, now didn't exist for us. So anyway, next thing I know, I fell in love with this English Springer Spaniel named Banner, and he was at a kennel, and I don't even remember why I was there. And his ears were like literally an eighth of an inch too short. They didn't touch the tip of his nose because he was a show dog, who his sires were. And I'm like, I fell in love with him. I'm like, well, how much do you want for him? They're like, you want him? He was almost a year old. $75. Like, sold.
Done.
And so took him home. Then I realized we're gone. We're working. All this stuff's happening. So I decided he needed a girlfriend. And so that's how I got Alina. Bought her from the same breeder, but she was hunting stock.
Mm-hmm.
She was not show stock. So she was a little bit broader, wider, thicker. And that's how you have all the pictures of you and puppies and everything else running around. But it was definitely challenging because there was a long period of time your mom and I worked separate shifts.
Yeah.
So one of us was home with you. Well, then once you got old enough to be able to tell us if something was wrong, to tell us if something was.
Let me ask you this. Marine, 1983, how much were you making at the time? I think about these things.
83, I think together we were bringing home $1,500, $1,600 maybe at the most together. Yeah.
Wild time.
But we did get a cost of living allowance because we lived out in base too. We got a housing allowance because if you lived on base and base housing, that was a stipend that you didn't get because you had base housing.
Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I want to touch on two things, but I want you to tell me how you want to go. I want to get into the wrongful arrest, but I also want to get into coaching. But the wrongful arrest happened when I was real young, like first grade, kindergarten, something like that.
Yep.
The coaching didn't come into play till after.
But it was. It was. I was out in Colorado. That's where I was an instructor out there teaching my military occupational specialty. Denver, great place to be. Loved it. Started running with some stunt cowboys. Thoroughly enjoyed that. And then I get out. I got a job out in Louisville, Colorado, doing my military occupational specialty. And of course, I'm paying child support, doing all those things. So I happened to figure out one day I need to get a part-time gig.
Yep. I
need to make some extra dough. I'm by myself. I mean, what else am I going to do? So I go to this, I'm driving down the mousetrap and I see this building and it looks like construction's going on. So I pull in and I walk in the door and I'm like, what's happening? And they're renovating it. And he says, you know how to swing a hammer? I said, absolutely know how to swing a hammer. So I worked for like 3 weekends. I'd go on Saturday all day, and then they didn't work on Sundays, and help them finish out this country western bar. Well, then the guy says, you want to work here? And I'm like, sure. Well, then I end up becoming the head bouncer there.
Yep.
So I'm the head bouncer, and this place is huge. We only used half the building for the bar, and it sat 2,000 people.
Wow.
The other half of the bar of the building, I should say, was enclosed, where we pulled employees' cars in, and we parked cars back there so we could lock the doors, because it was in a bad neighborhood, very bad neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so all that was going on, working, making money, finally started getting my act together financially, and then ended up getting married again and left. Pit stop in Vegas, then back to North Carolina. My father had a massive heart attack. So head back there. Long story short, I get pulled over in my sister's car. It's got Hawaii plates on it. The tag's expired. And the guy comes over, I hand him my driver's license, and he says, hey, you know, these tires are, I said, I'm sorry, this is my sister's car. Well, that turns into, oh, this is you? Yeah. Get out of the car, please. You're under arrest. Cuffs me.
Mm-hmm.
I said, dude, there's got to be a mistake. What am I under arrest for? I haven't done anything.
Yeah.
I haven't done a damn thing.
Yeah.
And he literally cuffed me, stuffed me, put me in the back of the car, and took me to jail. And I'm like, oh my God, what is happening right now? I didn't even know what I'd done yet.
Yeah.
So you get that call. I call my dad. And of course, my parents come, and I spent all day in jail because this was in the morning.
Yeah.
And then they hired a lawyer who I always called them Guido and Nikki, but that's not who they were.
Understood.
These guys come in, man. One of them's about 5'6". The other one's about 6'6".
Yeah.
But he talked about dressed to the nines. I mean, tailor-made suits. I mean, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Well, come to find out, at that bar, because I parked a lot of the cars.
Back in Colorado.
Yeah, I parked a lot of the cars. The waitresses, the bartenders, people come in, throw me their keys, me and my partner, Jay, and we parked the cars. Well, not to name names, but there was a person there who apparently was dealing a lot of cocaine.
Yeah.
And they had pictures of us in his vehicle, pulling it into, driving in around the parking lot and going up into the building with it. So they assumed we were part of that.
Mm.
And you and Sarah both were born.
Yep.
And his lawyer gets on the phone with the district attorney, prosecuting attorney in Colorado, and says, what exactly do you have on this guy?
Yeah.
He's a decorated Marine. I have two of the most beautiful little children I've ever seen sitting in my lap right now. And he's really confused as to what's happening. So they have the conversation. We can't hear but half of it. And so he finally goes, no problem. He hangs up the phone. He says, you ever have any plans going back to Colorado? And I said, not really. He said, it's done.
Oh, there you go.
I said, oh, well, what did I do?
Yeah.
And that's when he explained it to me.
So I remember, again, I can't remember if I was kidding. I was really young, 5 or 6, somewhere in there.
You were probably 5.
I just remember Lori picked us up, me and Sarah, or she came with Sarah. I was very little.
Yeah.
Grandma and Grandpa were there, and I was like, yay. They were very serious. And I'm like, what's wrong?
Very stressed.
And then we go to the jail or whatever. Again, I'm very young.
Went to the lawyer's office.
Yep. And you were there, and I was like, oh, that's when I don't know if I cried, but I felt something was very wrong. And I was scared, and it was a long day. I think we had ice cream sandwiches.
We did.
Not all I remember.
Oh, no, we did. Talk about a sigh of relief.
And that was about it for me on my side.
Yeah.
But I remember that whole moment, and I think I asked you about it a lot years later. And when you told me about it, I was like, these motherfuckers.
Oh, it scared the shit out of me, son. I can assure you. I'd only ever been in jail one time, and that was in senior beach trip. You know, anybody who had a beer in their hand went to jail for a few minutes, and they wanted a $25 fine. Yeah. And so I was in jail for like an hour because I actually had $25.
Yeah.
And that was it. And it was for alcohol in public or something stupid. Okay.
Yeah.
You got a beach full of freaking high school and college kids. What do you expect to be happening?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's one of those things. It's one of those moments that sticks in your brain. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would be remiss because I have to not to hype you up more than you need to, but you are an excellent coach. And I want to get into a couple stories because it ties into what we're going to get into in a minute. I think so there was a period of time, we're not going to get into all of it, but me and Sarah went and stayed with my mom, and then we ended up coming back. I think I was 8 or 9. I don't know.
Yeah, you were 9.
Yeah. I was a big kid, thought I was good at sports. I was not.
No.
And
you just weren't trained. You weren't taught.
Yeah. So you started, and I remember practicing with you for years. The weekends were practice or ball or whatever. I played baseball, basketball, football, and it was all of us, me, Sarah, Taylor, all of us. That's what we did. That was our weekends. And we'll get into Aycock Elementary because we had a great football team, but we'll talk about these things. But then I just want to get to the point. So then I have children, and I realized very quickly, just because you were a good player does not make you a good coach. And I would get so fucking frustrated, and I was trying my best, and I remember calling you, this point I want to get to. I said, Dad, I don't know how to teach it. I just remember being able to just throw a ball, catch, and hit. He's like, are you shitting me? Are you fucking kidding me?
Tyler, you and Taylor both got
years.
Yeah.
Can you touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, you and Tyler both. It's like, I remember playing. I remember us doing everything, but I don't know how the hell to teach. I'm like, you don't remember punch, lift, carry, cut it in half? You don't remember all that stuff?
No.
And it's like, oh my God.
I was just a natural athlete. I just did these things. You're like, you son of a...
Absolutely not the case. When you came to live with me in North Carolina, you were throwing sidearm and doing all these weird, crazy, bad things. And we just went outside and started point A. Nope. Throw the ball over the top. You're going to be more accurate. Now you're going to miss high and low. You're not going to miss left, right, and high and low. And just started there and started doing it, just did it, and just did the basic fundamentals until they were second nature. And of course, Sarah wasn't playing ball at all.
Not then, yeah.
So teaching her was almost easier. She didn't have any bad habits.
Yeah.
And of course, Taylor was little, so he was just learning, and he just wanted to be out there with you all.
Yep.
And I do remember there were times that you and Sarah would go out and play. So next thing you know, she's coming in crying because you're zinging the ball at her, burning her up or something.
Yeah.
Well, you know what that ended up doing? Making her a hell of a ball player.
Yeah, her team ended up going to the World Series. Yeah,
13th in the world, buddy.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
And then hitting is just, dude, thousands and thousands and thousands of pitches. Thousands.
Yeah, I think you blew your rotator cuff.
I did with Taylor. Finally, it finally went out. It's gone. But we did. And we hit that age. You were about 12 or 13, maybe probably 13. And it's, because baseball is a very mental game, and you have to stay focused and you have to do the fundamentals.
Yeah.
And you and Sarah both all of a sudden developed this habit of not watching the ball all the way through. And you're like, no, I was. So, okay. We ended up going to see your grandparents, my parents. Mom had an old VCR recorder, and I said, can I borrow this? Set it up, videotape you guys swinging, and did it for several hours on a Sunday afternoon. Got back to the house, put it in, and you were like, damn, I am pulling my head. And it changed the game.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing I will always say about you especially. When you got your head that you were going to do something, everybody just better get that out of the way because there ain't nothing going to stop you.
That's true.
And I remember you when you were like the first year there, you did not make All-Stars, but I think you were close. So your goal the next year was to make All-Stars, and you would have been 11. And I remember I had come home from work, and I'd shown you some drills to work on footwork and ball handling and everything else, and you'd have 2 buckets of balls set up, and you're out there running, doing crossovers, getting the ball because you played third base a lot and pitched and caught, but primarily third and pitch.
Yeah.
And you were doing those little drills, and baseball season hadn't even started.
Mm-hmm.
You were getting ready. Well, the rest is history. You made freaking All-Stars the next 2 years in a row. And of course, your 12-year-old year, we lost the North Carolina State Championship by 1 run in the last inning.
Oh, yeah.
From an error off a kid who hadn't made an error all year.
Yep.
Heartbreaking. But
I have that picture where we have our little trophy and I'm crying.
It was heartbreaking for everybody because we were winning the game.
Yeah.
And it was a routine ground ball. And unfortunately, it literally went straight through his legs.
Yep.
And a great kid, not blaming him for anything. He hadn't had an error all year.
Yeah.
And it's this one mental collapse. Yeah, it was something.
And I remember that team because was that the Flavel and Gabby?
That was the year after you played for them. That was that year they coached All-Stars. We didn't win. We didn't even win.
Yeah.
The next year, your 12-year-old year,
got it. I just remember though, because Flavel and Gabby, they were, let's just say that the kindler, gentler coaching style was not in their repertoire
at all.
And they would take a fungo baseball bat, line everybody up on third base, and smack it as hard as they possibly could. And I remember bitching about it. You said, nope, that's the right way to do it. And I was like, oh, okay. I felt like it was cruel and unusual punishment. And they're like, nope.
It would be today.
It would be today for sure. And then what's the other? I was on the pitching mound and I can't remember I can't remember. Gabby.
It was Gabby. Curveball.
Well, it was their drop ball. The drop ball.
God, yeah.
I threw 25 in a row.
Yeah.
And then I shook them off one time because I walked like 5 people. It wasn't working that night.
No.
And so I shook him off and threw my own pitch. He immediately called timeout, chewed me on the mound, chewed me in the dugout. And I went from pitcher, put on the catcher stuff, went to catching. And I think at the time, because I remember looking over, you had a cigarette and a dip in, and your eyes were red. I was like, ooh. I was like, get him, Dad. And you're like, I don't know if you had words with him or not.
Not the ones I wanted to have.
Yeah, fair enough. But
yes,
these are these moments that stick out in my head. And then, but baseball. But I want to talk about, because I think this is a good story and something that I remember and something I've carried with me. 6th grade, I think. 5th grade. It was Little League football.
Yeah, ACOG.
This is when I had like the biggest group of friends I think I've ever had, because I think almost every friend of mine from school played on that football team.
Yes.
With the exception of Ronnie Graham, who was a classmate. I wouldn't call him a friend, but he was 6'2", 200 pounds. I mean, he was the biggest. I still don't know if he was actually 11 or 12 or however old. But we did tryouts. We did all this stuff. And everybody just assumed I was going to be the quarterback because I was your son.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the part I can't remember. I can't remember if you asked me if I wanted to be quarterback or you just said, you're not the quarterback. But I was like, I don't want to be the quarterback. I want to be the center. I want to hit people. That's what I want to do.
That's what you've always wanted to do.
And you had Charlie Fox's quarterback. And then I can't remember his last name. Andre was the running back. And again, I'm not trying to get into the negatives because we basically didn't lose when it was a fair game, shall we say. But can you walk me through that? Because I remember you telling me about that and talking to the parents.
Yep. Well, your first year there, the team sucked.
Awful.
It was YMCA. It was running through the YMCA, and you played by the school you attended.
Yeah. Which is bullshit.
And there was a green school. I can't remember the name of them right now.
I can't either.
They won all the time. They won everything. Everything was great. And life in that area of North Carolina was beautiful. Well, then we show up 5th grade year. They got this guy coaching, and I realized quickly this guy does not know his ass from a hole in the ground. He's probably well-intentioned.
Yeah,
he has no idea how to teach.
Wants him to have a team, whatever.
So the next year, I took over as head coach. And one of the first things I tried to do, and I'll never forget it because I helped him that one year, and I'm like, these kids don't have any pride. they're not learning anything. They're not having fun. It's just not fun. And they're getting their asses beat. We were like, 50-50, half loss, half win. And when I decided to take over as coach for that team, one of the very first things I did was I went down to the elementary school. I met with the principal and I said, I would like your help with something. And she said, sure, what can I help you with? I said, I'm going to coach the ACOG football team. I said, I'm going to give you a roster of all of my players. And if any of them get in any kind of trouble, don't show up for school, fighting on the playground, I want you to let me know because I'm going to take care of it outside of school. And she said, really? I said, yeah. She says, absolutely. So then we go out that first day. And no, I didn't ask you if you wanted to play quarterback. I'd already decided that I was going to give you a shot at it.
Yeah.
And you had a great arm. I mean, you were a good athlete. Yeah. You weren't fast at all, but you had a tremendous arm and you're smart as all get out. Well, a quarterback needs to be smart and have a tremendous arm. So I lined up like 6 of you. It was you and Charlie, and I don't remember who. Maybe Andre might have been one of them.
He could have played too, but
yeah. Well, anyway, I lined you all up, and I had you just taking 3-step drop backs, throwing the ball, 3-step drop back, throw the ball, 3-step drop back, throw the ball, and then I started throwing deep passes, and I'm weeding you out, weeding people out, and I get down to like you and Charlie, and there was one other kid I can't remember now, and Charlie throws a P on a sideline route. That was it.
Yep.
I was done.
He was a lefty too.
Yep.
Yep.
And that was it. Done. And then, of course, we line up. We're running sprints. We're doing all the things. We're big into stretching back then.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of stretching.
Still should be.
And so that was it. Charlie played quarterback. You played tight end, played center. You played different positions, but it was all rough and tumble.
Yeah.
Get in your face positions.
That's what I like.
Yeah.
What you had a conversation with Charlie's dad.
Yeah.
Could you, cause that's what I remember. You told me this later. It wasn't in the moment. What was that?
He came up after practice and Charlie had been practicing. He was a quarterback and we were going over plays and we were learning different things. And so after practice, kids, all you guys are taking your helmets off and getting your stuff and getting a drink and doing what players do after practice. He comes over. He says, "Coach, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure. He said, "I saw Charlie playing quarterback."
Mm-hmm.
I said, "Yeah." He goes, "He's never played quarterback a minute in his life." And I said, "Okay."
Yeah.
He said, "You sure about this?" I said, "I'll teach him. He'll be good.
He'll be fine."
Of course, the rest was history.
Yeah, he crushed
One
it.
of our favorite plays was quarterback sneak on touch.
Oh, I loved
leading
it.
the way.
I loved it. He would just grab onto my back of my pants and just,
and you're bulldozing, and he would figure out where the hole happened, and he would cut that way, and we beat the crap out of everybody.
I know. I loved it.
We beat that green team 28-8.
I know. They were spitting, man.
They were mad.
Yeah, they were.
Whew.
We won't get into all that.
No.
Because that led to a whole bunch of other stuff.
Yeah. It really did, didn't it?
Yeah, buddy.
That was crazy.
I want to, before we get into the next stop, because you said you wanted to clear the record on the episode I did with Taylor about his championships. Because I said something like, I played all the sports. I got to the show, but I never won a state championship. I never won the All-Star championship. I always got to the show, but always fell short. And I think Taylor ended up having 2 or 3, or I don't remember how many, but
he had
son of a bitch.
He had 2. His 10-year-old year, Little League in the state of Virginia, you have the 10 and under and the 12 and under. 12 is what everybody knows and everybody sees. And if you win your state, you go to regionals and you're representing Southeast or whatever, and you end up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
10s don't do all that. They can only go to a state.
Yeah.
And we did. And that team, his 10-year-old year is the year, because after coaching you, after coaching Sarah, now I've been coaching him. Well, I threw batting practice constantly to this all-star team.
Yeah.
And we went out one morning and we had a big game that day. Big team out of Richmond that was actually everybody odds said they were going to beat.
Yeah.
And so we're throwing batting practice. Well, there was still dew on the ground. So by the time batting practice is over, my rotator is gone. And I really couldn't pitch anymore after that.
Yeah.
Couldn't do it. And we ended up winning.
Yeah. I remember. So I'm 8 years older than Taylor. So I think at that time I was in college.
Mm-hmm. You were.
And whoever sent a picture and I couldn't help but I was happy. I was proud, but I also went, God damn it. I was like, I could never get one of those.
Well, that was his. And the only other one he won was an AAU tournament, not a state championship.
Still impressive.
But it was a big AAU tournament. It was up in Harrisonburg, Virginia. It was a big deal. And we're down by 1 or 2 with seconds to play. And I can't remember our guard's name. He comes across half court, throws the ball at the rim, swish, 3-pointer, we win.
Nice. Yeah, but whatever, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I love that. I love because we still give each other shit about it.
Yeah.
To this day, I'm 40 years old and we still fuck around with that.
Well, but part of it too is if I'd had the coaching experience that I had by the time I got Taylor, we would have.
Probably.
Because a lot of that, I spent a lot of time reading books and magazines, and I also met with people. There was a guy that I met that had played college football, Georgia, I think. He was University of Georgia offensive lineman and was now living in that area. And I talked because he's huge. And so we're talking. I said, man, would you come out to one of my practices and teach some of my offensive and defensive linemen some moves?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where we learned the swim move and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And he did that.
Yeah.
And then with you, it was like, I think it was your first year, they had a clinic down there, and it was a Baltimore Oil scout.
Yeah.
Came out and was teaching coaches how to teach kids. So when the whole thing was over, I pulled him aside. He gives me another 30 minutes, one-on-one, about fielding a ground ball from short, third, whatever, taking your hop step and firing at the first, all that kind of stuff. And he's the one who taught me punch, lift, carry.
Yeah.
Punch, lift, carry.
Yeah.
He's the one who taught me that verbiage and the way to visually and orally get that to the kids.
Yeah.
And when it's punch, lift, carry, cut the ball in half. Boom.
Well, let me just to set up, because I want to ask what it was like when you came to a couple of my college football games. I remember that, but I remember there being a difference because you were always excited. I would call you, tell you about whatever I had going on. You were loving it. But I remember my mom, I think I was a senior, and I think it might have even been senior. I'm trying to remember, but it doesn't matter. She came to like 1 or 2 football games. And I remember the first one she came to, this was in high school. She was like, I got home after the game, whatever. She goes, I didn't realize what a big deal this was or how good you were.
Oh my God.
She was like, I was like, what do you mean? She goes, as soon as everybody found out I was your mom, I had people, I don't know who these people are, all wanting to come and talk to me about you. And she goes, I don't know anything about what you're talking about. I didn't realize it was like this.
Oh my God.
So then she came to another one and she was like, holy shit. And then college, where you pick where you're going or whatever, she came to that and there was press and all this other, I mean, this Riverview High School in Florida is a 6A high school, or at least it was when I was there. And she was like, it was just so funny because she would just look at me and she goes, I didn't realize it was such a big deal. I was like, well, I've been trying to tell you, Mom. I've been trying to tell you what's going on. But it was just very different. But what was it like for you when I got to play college ball and then you came to the games and you saw that? Very different scenario.
Yes. But at that point in time in my life, probably from the time you were 8 or 9 till Taylor was probably 12. So big spread there.
Yeah.
My mind was always coaching, teaching. It didn't matter if it was football, baseball, or basketball.
Yeah.
And one of the big things my takeaways from watching film on you playing high school football, you pulled the tight end. And of course that was you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in high school, they're pulling the tight end. I'm like, that's freaking amazing. I mean, that's amazing. That's big league stuff there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was totally impressed. So then following you over to Tennessee, come to a few of your games over there. To be honest, I mean, I enjoyed it. I felt like I wanted to go down the sideline, take the headset, and coach the team.
Yeah, we're not getting in
like,
on that.
Man, this is,
that's a frustrating.
I don't know about all this, but I can tell you right now, in my heart of heart, in my mind of minds, and it wasn't an arrogance thing by any stretch. I just gave a shit.
Yeah.
I really did care.
Yeah.
And some of my best wins weren't on the field. If you remember the Hispanic kid, I'm not going to tell his name.
Yep.
He played Sam linebacker for us. He was a good kid. He'd been in trouble. His father was in prison. Lived with a single mom, all this stuff. And we had a game one day, and the principal calls me and says, he didn't make it to school today. I said, oh, okay.
I do remember who you're talking about.
Okay. And
he had a rough upbringing.
Yes, he did. So we show up for the game, and I said, you're not starting. What? I said, you can't make it to school. You're not going to start on my football team.
Yep.
And he was one of our best defensive players.
Yeah.
And so I set him on the bench. One of the best, smartest moves I ever made.
Yeah, he never missed school again.
And he became a straight A student.
Well,
he wasn't in trouble.
Yeah.
Got straight A's.
He's a smart kid.
Yeah.
He's
and
funny too.
Hopefully it got him out of his situation. I hope and pray. I don't know.
At least for the year. How about that?
It did for the year.
But so these are the side effects of those decisions because he was a rough kid.
Yes, he was.
Let me explain. He would beat the fuck out of people. I saw him do it.
Yep.
But because we played football together and because he respected and liked you, he became my best friend. All of a sudden, I didn't have any of those concerns, issues, and worries.
Yep.
These are poignant moments for me. And again, it's a side benefit of having a large group of friends, teammates, whatever you call them. And let me just back it up. Just because you play on a football team doesn't mean we would knock each other out. There was plenty of fights in the locker room. I've been knocked out. I've knocked motherfuckers out. That's where you get all your shit out, but your teammates. So nobody else is allowed to do that to you.
Correct.
Just your teammates.
Same with the Marine.
100%. You might knock each other the fuck out, but if somebody else tried to do the same thing, that ain't going to go well.
At all.
I carried that into college. And again, I told Monte, we did an episode. He had no idea because somebody told me when I was graduating, they're like, you should thank Monte and some of the other teammates that I had. They kept a lot of people from fucking with you. And I had no idea what was going on. And then I told Monte that. He goes, I didn't think it was that bad, but yeah, you pissed a lot of people off because you were the white boy and all the girls wanted you, and you were the only one on the team, blah, 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 all these other things. I had no idea. So this was stuff going on, and I'm just living my life thinking, life was great. And it's like your teammates can shield you and protect you. Now, keep in mind, some of those same guys, we would fuck each other up in the locker room. But it is what it is.
Shit, some of the things that goes on behind the scenes, and you just have absolutely no idea.
But it started with that kid in fifth, sixth grade, whatever it was.
Yeah, it was sixth grade.
All right.
Yeah, he was a big success story for me. I had quite a few of those, but nothing to that extreme.
Yeah.
Kids who just were kind of losing their way at times, or parents were getting divorced and they were acting up. And as a coach, you have to be more than a coach. You have to be a role model.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate for me because later I was umpiring and I was behind the plate. I'm doing a 16 and under state championship Little League tournament in Roanoke, and kids at the plate. I mean, these are 16, 17-year-old kids. And I mean, buddy, they're throwing smoke.
Yeah.
I took a tip foul ball off the collarbone and I thought I might cry, like for real. And it just cleared my chest protector just barely. It skipped right off the top of that thing. I mean, Anyway, kids at the plate gets hit square in the back with a fastball.
Mm-hmm.
Two-seam fastball. I mean, square in the back. He just about fell. It hit him so hard.
Mm-hmm.
He drops the bat and he's doing his back, but he's crying. Okay, you're 16. That's uncommon.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of hobbling down to first base. He's hobbling down. The coach is yelling at him, oh, nice job. Be alert, be alert. And I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa. And I finally see him down there and he's not even watching the game. He's in such pain.
Yeah.
I call timeout. I walk down the first base line. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, son, are you okay? Are you okay for real? He said, can I have a minute? And I said, absolutely. So I took my time going back to the plate. I looked at him. I said, are you okay? He said, yes. Play ball. Game's over. Head of the umpires. You can't be touching players.
Yeah. Well,
I'm like, I agree.
Understood.
But I can't help. He's got a coach who could have cared less. He just wants to win a ball game. He doesn't care about his players.
Yeah.
You have to care about your players. You have to care about those that you are responsible for.
Yeah.
Just like that kid we were talking about. Because I did care for him. And we gave him rides to football practice sometimes because he had no other way there. And don't know that I changed many lives, but I hope I changed a few.
Yeah, fair enough.
Goal anyway, for the better.
Well, and that's kind of what I want to touch on, and you take it whatever direction you want to, but the values that you try to instill or still trying to instill in not just your kids, your grandkids. One, what are they? Two, where'd you get them from?
You know, it's funny. I went through my second divorce, and that's when I ended up in Highland County, Virginia, doing contracting work. Well, I was up there by myself and living in a 1953 single wide that when I got there, I had no power, no running water, no nothing. I had an apartment in Roanoke, but it gave me lots of time for soul searching, lots of time, lots of quiet time. And of course, I'm a single contractor, so I'm out there doing all the work myself, working on a church property that had flooded, getting it completely renovated, new floors, new everything. So I was up there for about 4.5 months getting all this done. And poor, broke, come home every day, grab my rifle, grab a little drink, and head around the woods. Knew those woods like the back of my hand. Shoot a deer, bring it back, gut it, skin it out, hang it for a couple days, process it. And I was shooting that year. I think I shot 4 deer, all legal. And that's what I lived on, was deer meat, potatoes, bacon, and eggs. And then peanut butter and jelly and sandwiches. And that's what I ate every day. And the next thing I know, I've got a little money in the bank. I've kind of all this time thinking, how can I be a better person? Not that I felt like I was a bad person, but how can I be a better person? And that led to no more handouts, hand ups. Give anybody, doesn't matter who it is, give them a hand up. There's people who genuinely struggle and to no fault of their own.
Yep.
And it's perfectly appropriate in my mind to reach down, give them a hand, get them up off the ground. But to just give handouts doesn't help anything. That was one of my big highlighted moments for me up there. The other thing, try to be more attentive to those I care about. I was always ripping and running, always in a hurry.
Yep.
Next job, next business deal, next whatever. Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. And a lot of that was the Marines because everything was hurry up in the Marines.
Yep.
You hurry up and get there. You hurry up and eat. You hurry up, you hurry up. And to slow down a click, just a click, not change who I am, just take a step back. And with the grandkids, when you see them doing something and maybe it's not spectacular, but it's cool, go tell them it's cool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So the big thing for me, the thing that got me through coaching kids, especially being a Marine, honor, integrity, discipline, all those things that you learn are my life's blood.
Mm-hmm.
Very instilled in me. If don't do anything when no one's watching that you wouldn't do when someone was watching.
Mm-hmm.
And coaching kids, I realized quickly the biggest thing is let them know you give a shit.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you treat them like with kid gloves because they're kids. People treat some kids like you can break them easily. No. Treat them age appropriate and be firm, fair, and disciplined.
Yeah.
And if you do that, I mean, what you've done with Alec and Alina, I mean, look at them. They're thriving, and I mean, and it takes a while, and everybody has a moment.
Oh yeah. I keep saying it. When they turn 30, I'll know if I did a good job or not.
No, that's about right.
Because age appropriate, I laughed only because I have been told several times that why are you telling them this shit? They're too young, but I don't know any other way to be in it. And like you said, there's not a handbook for it. You just do the best you can. And
I was always pretty honest with you.
I never wanted to scare them, but I also wanted them to understand why I feel the way I feel.
Yeah. Well, there's bad people out there, man.
Well, you'd be surprised how many people don't think so.
Yeah.
It fucking blows my mind.
The other thing that scrambles my brain is the stories that I've heard over the years about these inappropriate coaches.
Yeah.
To me, I don't want to be so harsh to say put them in front of a firing line, but I would say arrest them, jail them, give them a lot of jail time because you're put in a position of authority, responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
People are allowing you to have their kids for whatever time frame, 2 hours, 3 days a week, 2 hours, 5 days a week, whatever it is, and you're abusing that trust. Oh my God, that's a special place in hell for them people.
Yeah.
So, and that's one thing I did learn later in life when I was coaching and Taylor was coming up probably 10. I'd have a parents meeting, first practice, very first practice.
Yeah.
Get them all in the bleachers. Glad to meet you. This is me. This is who I am. This is what you can expect. This is what you cannot expect. And if any of you have a problem doing it or with anything that I'm telling you right now, that's fine. You coach, take your kid with you and go coach somewhere else because I'm going to do it my way.
Yeah.
And I'm not really that interested in what you have to say about my coaching side.
Yeah.
If there's something going on with your kid, I very much appreciate you telling me that.
Yeah.
But not my coaching style.
Yeah. Setting the rule.
Yeah. And never had a problem.
Yeah, well, I mean, you were winning, so
that helps.
Did quite well.
That helps too.
Did quite well.
That's not a bad thing.
Well, Pop, we could wrap it up. Anything you want to leave with? This won't be the only time. So.
No, I'm just so proud of you, and I am. I mean, I'm very proud of you, and I'm very proud of your children. And if anybody listen to this, the big thing for me personally, nobody else.
Yep.
When you genuinely care, it's just like my parents genuinely caring, having a love for neighbors, love for family, love for their country, got instilled in me, which I in turn hopefully instilled into my kids, who in turn instilled it into their kids. And that's how they're in service to our communities, our country. And I think it's important. And these idiots out here that are running around burning flags, doing all this freaking nonsensical crap, they're just angry. That to me, it's nothing but anger in their heart. And they need to somehow get rid of that anger. And they would be much happier human beings.
Oh, yeah. Letting it go.
Let it go, baby.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Well, Pop, I appreciate your time and I love you.
Love you too, buddy.
All righty.